Hello, Egyptology Lessons. Today we're going to discuss and provide an in-depth analysis of the first astronomical chart in ancient Egypt from the Tomb of Senenmut at Deir el-Bahri. This is not to be understood as a photocopy of the sky, but actually more of a mythological, agricultural, and ritualistic with funerary rites involved in it. So it's an accompaniment of tradition that has passed way back, even up to the 5th Dynasty. So this first chart was the first attempt by Senenmut, and which later was copied by later pharaohs, and you can find them in at least 8 to 10 different tombs of this type, but changes and variations. So we're going to discuss it, not too much in detail, but at least give you an idea of what you're looking at so you're not too confused and know your bearings on this particular astronomical chart. So the Egyptians were very good at astronomy. They were able to gauge their inundation and their seasons through it. They knew many of the stars, but not the way we see stars and planets. They just knew that there were celestial heavenly bodies that were actual gods, and they lived up in the sky with Nut. So in the end, this is more of a religious and ritualistic depiction. Now, so let's begin by going through the middle section, and from the middle section we'll work our way to the top and the bottom. So the middle section, I'm not going to read all of it. It's all hieroglyphs. It's usually just ritualistic prayers and offerings to different gods, and also titles of Senenmut. Now, Senenmut's name can be depicted several times in here. Usually it starts off with words spoken, O Osiris, and then foremost of Westerners, Senenmut, and this repeats several times, and then it provides titles and blessings to him and his family as well. But I will read the center part here. Now you can zoom in here if you like, if you can kind of download the video and watch it, but over here you'll see that this is a title to the pharaoh at the time, which is the famous Hatshepsut. Senenmut was a very close steward of Hatshepsut, and over here you have her titles, her 5 royal names, plus Senenmut's name and his family's name as well. So what you have over here is, starting here, is the living Horus, which is the first name, which is the circa, which is known as the living Horus, and it repeats over here twice. So this is the first of the 5 names, which means mighty of cause, so mighty of cause. Then you have the 2 sister names, the Nepti, which is the Wajet, and the Nechbet, which represent the upper and lower Egypt protection of the vulture and the cobra. And here it says flourishing in years. Over here you have the golden Horus, the 3rd in line of the 5 names of the pharaoh, and it says divine of appearances. And then you now enter only the throne name. You don't even do the personal name here for Hatshepsut, it's just the throne name. And this is usually was just out of honor. And she is the king of Upper and Lower Egypt. Her name is Ma'at Kare, and this means the true one of the Ka of Ra. So the true one of the Ka of Ra. And then you have an honor to Amun, because that was the state god by which Egypt was ruled at the time. And Hatshepsut associated herself with Amun. So Amun Ra, or beloved of Amun Ra. And here you have basically a living in the seal, the overseer or the seal bearer, the overseer of the house of Amun. And then you have Senenmut's name. And then here you have maid of Ramos, and that's his father, who is true of voice, and then born of Hat Nofret, which is his mother, Hat Nofer. So there it is. That's the title that we have here. So let's get into actually understanding the chart. So what you have is the astronomical chart is separated into 2 parts. You have the south and the north. So this is the northern sky, and this is the southern sky. In the tomb, it's actually reversed. This is on top. But in this particular depiction that I copied off a different artist, and I forget the name, Richard Wallace, I believe, or Wellington, I can't recall. And this is the way he's drawn it out. So let's start at the very top. Ancient Egyptians were aware of decans in the meridian. They were aware of the horizon, which they called the heavenly vault. So anything under the south, so anything basically south down, they considered the heavenly vault. They really just focused on just a couple of constellations, a few of them. Many are still disputed and discussed among Egyptologists and astronomers, excuse me. So here what you have on top here, which I will not name all of them, I'll try to do as much as I can, but these are basically going in this direction. These are the decans, the 30 decans. For if you're an astronomer, you know what that means, and that goes over here. And each decan had a name. And you can see star clusters, and they knew of star clusters, but they didn't know what they were. They just knew they assembled in a certain way. Here you have the star clusters, the many different names. Over here you have let's say Herkenemet starts up here, comes down. So Tepi Herkenemet, right? And it basically means the two brothers in Seti, and then the first one is in front of the Deccan star. So in front of the Deccan star, and then you have the two brothers in Seti, and this goes on and on and on in many details. So just so you know, these are the Deccans. You can obviously, I'll take a picture of this, I can share with anybody so you can read what each one of them are. I'm happy to do that. But what's the most important is visualizing what we're seeing. So over here, there are generally in the other tombs, there are something called cluster stars, stars that are come together. And over here, we only have 3 clusters plus a very unusual cluster. So the first cluster of the fifth, which it actually goes in 3, 4, 5. The number 3 cluster is right here, and this is under the Iset star, which actually means sheep. So as you see, you come down here like that, which here it says is the 3rd cluster. It comes down here, and you see the sheep or the ram sometimes it was associated with, and this is the Iset. So this is the sheep constellation. We know that one for sure. And then this continues. Now this boat is a very unusual one. This is the Uia. So now many astronomers and Egyptologists think that this may be Mars because of its retrograde movement, and therefore there is nobody on the boat and it's just going in a different direction. So people base it on Mars. And so this could be Mars, but we don't know really for sure, but that's how it is. Now you enter the 4th cluster, which is buried down here. You have the cluster 4, which is a cluster of stars. Again, we don't know what these are. Many people are disputing it, but again, we don't know 100%. Then you come into the 5th cluster right over here. This cluster right here, it says the 5th cluster. And this is something that, again, we don't really know. There are many articles I can share with you, a large publication, about 50 pages, describing in detail what these clusters may be and what different specialists describe. And finally, you entered the unusual cluster. This is known right over here. And this is the cluster of water. Again, it says it right there, the cluster of water, or the water of the cluster. So we don't really know, again, there's a lot of discussions around it and what this is. It could be just different constellations or different clusters of stars that they have seen in the night sky, and that's how they associate it. They wouldn't really know what it is exactly, but just distant stars or very vague, fuzzy-looking grouping of stars. So there you go. You have the 3rd cluster, the 4th cluster, and then the 5th cluster right over here. And then you have what is called the cluster of water. On the other tombs of ancient Egypt with different pharaohs, you actually have 6 clusters in total. So you can definitely check out the tomb of Seti, Amenhotep, many of the Ramses as well, they have it. But let's discuss quickly what was most important and what is we're very aware of. Now this here you can see is the name of the pharaoh, her Serach name or the Horus name, which you could saw over here. And that's Hatshepsut's name. Now this here is the 4 planets that we are aware of. They named them differently, and a constellation of the turquoise. So the first section right over here, which comes down, you could see this type of Bennu bird or type of, I forget, the pelican bird. This is Venus. This is known as the star, the bright. So this is right over here. This is the Venus star, and with Osiris name over here, this means boat. And then basically the boat of the star, because they believe stars traverse like gods on boats. And then you enter this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 column section. This is actually Mercury. We know this because of the name that we have over here for Mercury. And what this does is gives Mercury many different titles and names. So this is the word Mercury right there, and then the honored one, the bright one, and then on it goes. And then, of course, you have gods that are associated with certain adjectives or characteristics. And it goes over here. So this entire section defines Mercury. We already have the name, so we know that this is just attributes. Then we enter what is an unusual type of constellation, which was pretty much considered to be important to the Egyptians. We don't have much information about it. There is some scattered details, but not a lot. This is known as Shetui. This is the name of the word turtle. And this is known as his 2 sons. Why the 2 sons? We're not sure, but they were considered 2 pairs of stars, 2 pair of turtles, Shetui. And this could be Presidia and Gamisa. This is what possibly it could be, but we don't really know 100%. Then, now we enter the 2 major planets over here. After we have Venus, Mercury, and then we enter Saturn. So we know this is Saturn because of the title that's written above. But for some unusual reason, this was known as the Ka of Horus. But for this particular reason, in this tomb, he put the mother of the Ka. So that's unusual because Saturn was associated with Horus, so for some reason it was switched. And there's some information written over here. regarding the boat, which I won't read in full detail, but it says here, his name, the boat of the eastern sky, which is the star, and it says it over here, the boat of the eastern. So his name, the boat of the eastern sky, the star, that says it over there. The next one is Jupiter. Jupiter was also very well known, very visible in the sky to the Egyptians, and it says the same thing over here. And then here it says, if I can get closer to it, the boundaries of Horus. So the boundaries of Horus, or the boundary of Horus. And then over here it says his name in the southern sky, which is the star, and which is actually Jupiter. Now they didn't see them as planets, just as stars, and they perceived them as gods that are moving through the heavenly body. Now we come to two very important constellations to the Egyptians, very important. They're actually a star and a constellation. This is actually Sirius. So this is the Sirius dog star. She is equated with Isis. You can see Isis and Sopdet, and that goes from here to here. So she is Isis, Sopdet, and that's the name for the dog star Sirius. And she is known, a very important star, that when it rises in the month of July every year, it harks the inundation season, so the coming of the flood. And when she appears, it's very important. And then to her right is Osiris, who is Orion. This is the word Sa in ancient Egyptian for Orion. Orion was very important because he harked the coming of Sopdet, which is the Sirius dog star. And you could see it's Orion because of the three stars that accompany the belt. Now, I know the middle one is Anilam, and there is Alnitak. I don't know if they reverse with Mintaka, but that's for sure is considered to be the Orion belt with the three stars that connect. So to them, this was very important that when Osiris arrived in July, she followed right after the Sirius dog star. Again, these are all the decans. They start from here and then they go all the way down to Sopdet, and that's where it ends. Again, you can go in many of these details. This means above, this means below. So above, above, below, below, and on. You have the Eye of Ra, you have Osiris, you have Meskhetui, and I'll describe that to you shortly. But that's it. That's what you're seeing. The decans, three constellations, which I showed you before, which is number 3, 4, and 5, plus the possibility of Mars being a boat as a retrograde planet, as well as the sheep or the ram constellation. And then you have the cluster of water constellation as well. You have Venus right over here, Mars in these 5 lines, and then you have the constellation of the 2 turquoise, and then you have Saturn, Jupiter, you have the dog star Sirius, and you have, of course, Orion. All right, so that's that. Let's descend down to explaining what this bottom section is over here. Now, this section deals with the lunar and the seasonal aspects, so the way they perceive their timekeeping. At the very bottom here, you have 16. So starting from over here and then going over there, you have 16 deities, and each one represents the moon cycle of the nighttime. So the waxing and the waning of the moon cycle. And you have it over here and then over there, and each one has an individual god that's associated with it. Some of them we're not familiar with, but others we've seen in other tombs as well. But that's pretty much it. Nothing here that I could define to you that is recognizable. The names are all written on here. You can definitely download the video and zoom in or ask me for a copy of the image. I'm happy to send it to you. And then over here you have other constellations. That, again, these images vary from different tombs, different time positions, and so on and so forth. So over here you have the other grouping of the lunar ones. So altogether 16. And here you have, so again, count from over here and minus this little one, and minus this and this, and then you come to Isis. It says her name here, Isis, and then the 4 sons of Horus, which is Imseti, Hapi, Duamutef, Kebesenuef, and then you have other gods on here as well. For example, Heknu, who is the plunderer. So we'll come back to that one shortly. All right, let's get to the center area over here. What do we have here? Well, to the Egyptians, the most important constellation was the Big Dipper, because the Big Dipper was considered where the imperishable stars live. Now, this is the northern sky. And what the Big Dipper did is right over here, and it was known as, I believe it's Meskhetui. I always forget how to pronounce it. Meskhetui actually revolved around itself. At the time that the astronomers calculate today, this particular constellation revolved. It never moved like the other planets, the other constellations and stars. It never dipped below the meridian. It always stayed in its own position. At night, it always was there. It never disappeared, and it always spun around in a circle. And how did it spin around? Well, the Big Dipper was considered to be a cow. or an ox or a bull. In some other tombs or coffin texts, you'll see that it actually just is the foreleg of an animal. But in this particular image, you could see that it's actually a bit of a cow. But other times, it actually is a full cow. And over here, you could see its name inside it with the 3 stars that associated with it for some reason. It could also be the Orion belt, which is probably just added within it. Again, very confusing. We don't really know why, but there's 3 stars in there. And this point here, you see that circle? That is the point by which it spins around, which is Ursa Major, which is circulating in the center of Ursa Major, the constellation. So this particular cow, just imagine going around a circle around this particular point. Now, what you have here is Enu. Enu is known as the sacrificer, the one who stabs or kills the bull. Again, everything is very ritualistic. It's based in mythology. And he is always there in all the images in the other tombs of the other pharaohs and kings. He is always visible, Enu. Now you have Serket as well as the cobra. She is the scorpion goddess. Why is she her association with him? Again, is still uncertain. It may not necessarily mean that this is the Scorpio constellation, but it certainly means that Serket, you could see this is the female god Serket, and she's holding the center. So this has to do something with the constellation formation at the time. She is holding the center point for which Ursa Major turns around. And you can see the symbol of Serket on her head, which is usually very indicative of Egyptian gods when they want to associate a very general female figure or male figure. Now, what you have here is, after that, is you have a post. Now, this is a mooring post. There's 3 of them. In this image, there's 3. In others, there's 4. There's 1 mooring post here, 1 here, 1 here. These mooring posts are set to when a cow is sacrificed. It's basically a post is put into the ground and the cow can go around in a circle, do what it wants. But that is the cow that is the cow that is held down in order to be sacrificed later. So this particular large mooring post holds this cow down. It's the same ritual done by sacrificing an animal, and Ursa Major is set up in that same format. Down here, you have a hippopotamus goddess known as Reret, or Reret, the Great One. And she may be a Tauret, but actually she is mostly Reret. And she is associated with the universe, the Great One. She is by which she holds, and you can see even though she's not holding this here, but she's holding this mooring post and that, she is holding, the universe is holding Ursa Major down. Why is there 3? Again, that's based in mythology. There are many other reasons. And that's the position. Now, the crocodile on her back, it also could be another constellation that refers to something that is close to the universe, maybe the Milky Way on the very back. Still disputed. Not much information has been provided in the archaeological records as to why the crocodile is on the back, but sometimes the crocodile is there, sometimes is not. But this is considered the great universe itself, the great expanse of beyond. And she's holding down Ursa Major so she doesn't drift. That's the point, because she spins around in circles, in a same circle in the night sky above the meridian, never descending to the south. Remember, this is the northern sky. She is holding down the actual constellation, which is very important to the Egyptians for renewal. That's where most of the gods and the pharaohs, everybody wanted to go when they died, over to Ursa Major. Now, down here, you have an assemblage of different things. Now you can see there's some drawings that were written. Now this tomb painting art was actually redrawn. It was corrected. It was up here. It was brought down. This lion actually holds the title of the divine one upon which he is in the middle of Sak and right over here, Irmau, or it could also be Hetep Retui, the one who is on his 2 feet. This is the title of Sobek. So Sobek is for sure standing there. This particular standing person is known as the giant. We don't know where his association is in the constellational system, but he is known as the giant. We know that from different time charts and tombs. But here he is. So this lion is saying that he is in between him and him. So when you see, again, we know that it's Leo for sure, the constellation Leo. So we know that he is in between these 2 constellations. One is known as the Plunderer right over here as well. This is another one right here, the Plunderer. And he will be between, Leo will be between him and him. But then there's the Plunderer right here who's also associated with both the Sacrificer. So that's it. So what you have is Serket, Ursa Major spinning around. You have Enu, who is ritualistically stabbing. Not Horus, just Enu, who is sacrificing the animal. And this is usually generally given to the sacrificer of the real bull on Earth. You have Sak up here, which is possibly another constellation that holds back is close to Ursa Major, and then down to Leo over here, where you have also Hetep which is Sobek, and that's his title, and he is also considered the attacker, with the plunderer right over here, right? The plunderer right here, because this word here belongs to him, right over here, and Leo is holding back all three of them from going to Ursa Major, and that's really the point of it. There's a giant article, I can send it to everybody, but that's it. So let's finish off by explaining what these circles are. Egyptians had 12 months to a year, and they had 3 seasons. So you already can see here there are 3. This is 4 months of a season, and that's another 4 months of a season, and that's another 4 months of the season. So if we look at this in the way the Egyptians saw it, this is the inundation. This is the beginning of July. So from July to October. And each season had a name, a month name. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's how it goes. It goes first month of, let's say, the season of inundation, or Akhet. And it's basically season 1, season 2, month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4 of the Akhet season. And then you go down to we go over here actually, to the planting, the Peret. And this season starts 1, 2, 3, and 4. So here you have 1, 2, 3, 4 of the inundation. Here you have 1, 2, 3, 4 of the harvest. And you can see Renetutet, the famous serpent goddess. She is known for the harvest. So the planting season, her festival is celebrated during this time. Over here now you have the Shemu, the harvest. This is where you dig up. So let me just go back again. So this is from June to October for the inundation. And from the planting, you have from November to February. And then you come to the Shemu, which is the harvest. We're now gathering between March and June. And the months go 1, 2, 3, 4. So here you have 1, 2, 3, 4 of inundation. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4 of the actual planting of Peret. And here you have 1, 2, 3, 4 of the harvesting. And that's it. Maybe one more thing I wanted to say above here. You have a title of the Peret. This is the Ast Jamet. That's the name of the festivals. So Isis, who is in the mother of the festivals. So that could be an interpretation of her name, but there are other ways to look at this as well. So that's it. The northern sky, the southern sky. I've told you about the planets and the decans. I've told you about the titles of Senenmut. This is one of his famous titles, or honorary titles to Hatshepsut, to himself, to his father and mother, and then some other extra titles to gods and what he does in his position, as well as down here, it's repeated again, giving honor to himself. The stars surrounding over here are just to demonstrate that this is an astronomical chart. Again, I've described the seasons. You have the month of inundation, the season of inundation, the season of the planting, the season of the harvest. And then you have the moon cycle right over here with these 16 gods together. The universe, Ursa Major, Enu the striker. You have Leo over here, and you have different gods that are being held back, and the giant over here with Serket over here. And that's it, everybody. That is the astronomical chart that you're seeing of Senenmut. It's the first in Egypt and was copied by everyone else. And I will repeat myself again. If for any reason you're interested in a copy of this with my writing on it so you can zoom in and read, I'll send it to you in 4K image. So you'll have it and then you can learn as well. Just message me so I know. And that's it, everybody. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and understanding a little bit about the astronomical chart of Senenmut.